Hey everyone, it's Phil Hall of Westfair Communications, and thank you for joining us on this episode of Westfair Video Conversations. Today we're going to be discussing food, glorious food, and our guest is somebody who knows quite a bit about that subject. His name is Richard Lawrence Stein, and he runs What's on the Menu Catering services. And Richard, I almost hate to ask this question, but what has the catering business been like since the pandemic began?
Well, Phil, thank you for having me. And I can actually tell you from a micro and a macro, or from two different windows. As my company name says, What's on the Menu Event Services, I cover all bases when it comes to events, from front of house, back of house, the food, everything. And part of that is my own personal stuff of freelancing when I'm not catering. So March 6th was the last time I worked in New York City. I've done some freelance things since, but I'll give you this is the perfect example. March 6th, I worked at the Ford Foundation that everybody knows as, Helena Rubinstein, the Ford Foundation, PBS, that is them. So I was doing event things for them in-house. That was March 6th. While we were in the kitchen working, doing and preparing and everything, the discussions were the cancellations of events going on and on and on, and the need for staff and people, be it kitchen, front of house, the whole operation. And then it was, we're shutting down.
Oh.
Right. So they went from traveling down the Merritt Parkway to hitting the tree on the Merritt Parkway.
Oh.
So yeah, exactly. A complete and utter stop. Now, historically, the catering industry and business, as of January 1, goes into hibernation. It slows down, quiets down. You might have some dinner parties, maybe small events, Valentine's Day, whatever, nothing. Zero, zilch, nada. My last working event for myself personally was prior to that time frame of March 6th and everything else. And it, summer would have been your usual huge busy season, July 4th, Memorial Day weekend, everything. So the entire industry as a whole has come to a complete and utter stop. Everybody hears about and everybody is supporting fantastically the restaurants and those places around here. And Connecticut was very lucky because possibly calmer, cooler heads thought out of the box and did all this take home and take away and pick up and all these other things. But, New York, Cuomo shut it down, good, bad, or otherwise, but they also had such a drastic and unbelievable, hit. Connecticut, we had our fair share. I don't know how many people have really had the bad luck of knowing or having people who contracted the illness. I personally had both of my parents who are fine and healthy. My sister and family in New York had it. My other brother did not, and he's actually in hot zones and is a physician. But one of my roommates from college nearly died 3 times and was in the hospital for 61 days. And was then in rehab a little bit after. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's 53 years old, 2 daughters, ex-wife, so on and so forth. So the shockwaves and repercussions just from the food standpoint is one thing, but then when you're really bringing in life and, it's it's a weird juxtaposition and a weird balancing act. I've always lived a pretty easy, modest, within my means lifestyle. I've enjoyed the luxuries of certain things, but I'm not a person who really necessarily goes to extremes. So when things hit and all of a sudden there's this financial crunch, I wasn't going to go for PPEs or small business loans or any of those things. I just shut it all down and minimized my exposures, kept my means simple, and I was kind of like a squirrel. I stocked away a lot and enough where I can actually survive relatively comfortably, living my life, but then again, what are you doing Friday night? Well, I'm watching TV and doing nothing. Is it scary? Yes. Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Yes. Am I optimistic? Yes. Am I pessimistic? I have my uncertainties at its moments, but here's something that people don't necessarily think about or think of. Hotels, their catering and all their stuff is you can't gather so many people. So even if it's even if it's outdoors, you have limitations. So all the parties, all the events, industry-wide, from bar mitzvah, wedding, any kind of social baptism, take your pick, to corporate. My entire corporate world has vanished. My older brother is a political financial person with a major institution that everybody knows. And I said to him, when do you think you will have a 300-400 person conference that I'm going to get to cater or be at through one of my city organizations? And he was like, 22, 23, or when this is, whatever, because he personally will not schedule like a conference or any other venue, and I've worked for some of the biggest. As a matter of fact, one of the few times that I have been in the city to work was in relation to doing food boxes for the less fortunate, contracted through the city for it's called Creative Edge Parties. And that was the extent. And in discussion with one of the other people there, it was almost like, and I say this completely whimsically, it was like Mafia 5 families. The heads of the biggest catering groups, who are, not that they're not congenial and get along or anything like that, but they're the opposition. It'd be like the Red Sox versus the Yankees and the Mets, Yankees. You're all in the same city or rivals and stuff, but you want them to survive because you're going to survive. There's enough to go around. And this is back in May, and they were trying to figure out and discuss, are we going to come together? Are we, how are we going to survive this? Danny Myers has been very out front on it. He's the Shake Shack, Impresario, some unbelievable other restaurants and stuff. But the ripple effects through the industry that people don't think about, realize, figure. You hear about them, but they're not nearly as expounded on and well talked about as it could be.
So what do you see as your near-term future? When do you expect to be back in full throttle business?
Oh, full throttle business. That is the equivalent of a needle in a haystack. There's a lot of looking, a lot of searching. The best answer in question, I don't know.
Wow.
I honestly don't know. And for whatever bizarre reason, and I couldn't explain to you, I have a real bizarre sense of calm to it. Maybe because it's beyond my control. Um, you know, trying to be assertive, efficient, reaching out to friends who are in the industry, who are getting small things or doing small things and doing freelance related stuff for them. Just because I really want to just keep my exposure down and simplified as much as possible. And it's interesting because I have done 6 or 7 things related to freelance. And sadly to say, people are not following policy, procedures, protocols in the CDC. I was out in Sag Harbor, and somehow they got dispensation. I'm not sure how or why, but they were way over the people limit. We, as the staff and back of house, maintained very high protocol. Our protocol was so high that our front of staff, every time they went out with a pass or things to bring people, we changed gloves. So, and they were color-coded gloves so that people knew that that person, if they saw them, knew they had a fresh pair of gloves on. They changed masks periodically. Of course, hand sanitizer and all those things are prevalent everywhere now. And then I did something in the New Haven, their Gold Coast, and they too didn't have any distancing, anything. And it saddens me because I want to get up and running. I want to be full force. I want to, go back to having the weddings, the bar mitzvahs, the dinners, and all the things without having to, worry, not for myself personally, but for everybody else. And as they say, I'd like to consider myself young. I am over 50 though. But I live and lead a healthy lifestyle. Even though you do see my pizzas,
Oh, yes. How come you don't invite me over for dinner?
Well, something, I get that a lot, but I will send out a note to you next time.
Yeah.
But
you folks, if you follow Richard on Facebook and Instagram, it's like he has these food photos. It's like you can gain weight looking at the photos.
And ironically, I've lost weight, so I feel pretty good about that. It's so silly, and it shouldn't be a political argument. Just wear a mask. It's not difficult, and we all just want to get back to what we were doing. And if one aspect of it is wearing a mask, wear the most stylish, fun mask you can find.
Mm-hmm. Well, Richard, we have 2 of the big food holidays coming up, Thanksgiving and Christmas. Are you getting inquiries from people?
I've gotten inquiries, but it's really kind of sad because I get inquiries and I'll create a menu and come up with stuff and whatnot, and then radio silence.
Oh.
And that's part of the battle, and it's interesting. I'm not one of those people who jacked up prices. I didn't do anything of any, they always do. They do a, cost analysis. What is the cost of Thanksgiving? And if you actually Google it, it can run anywhere between $45 and $65, upwards over $100 per person, depending on, of course, the craziness of the menu and all the things that go with it. But it's funny. The chef the cook, the bottle washer, the whatever. I saw my mother yesterday at Campo Beach while I was walking my my COVID obtained dog, and I said to her, I'm like, "What are we doing for Thanksgiving?" She goes, "Nothing."
Oh.
And I was like, I'm like, wow, even my parents are definitely a little bit more of the fearful and worry, but my father's a doctor, so he has it from a medical thought process and stance, and applying his knowledge and science and Dr. Fauci and everything else. So, they're being safe and precautionary. And I cannot blame them for their fears, concerns, and everything else. I have not, so I haven't given my parents a hug in almost 9 months now, eight plus months, so there's a lot of, sadness, grief, and everything else, but we have our Zooms, we have our distance gatherings and whatnot when we can. I celebrated my mother's 75th birthday.
Great.
Yeah, but it was at a distance. It was kind of a bummer. So we couldn't ring it in the way we wanted to ring it in. Mm-hmm. We tried to coax her, but it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Richard, as this conversation shows, you certainly have a gift for gab. Have you thought of doing any online cooking shows or demonstrations during this period?
I was approached, or in the beginning, there was an avenue like, what can you teach? What can you do? It was actually through one of the like AT&T was looking to help people and do things. It's probably something I should do. And I do like entertaining myself. And it's very funny because, as I said, I picked up a lovely puppy who's actually right here next to me now. And we have discussions and talks and other things. And one of my friends said that you guys need a YouTube channel because you're really quite funny. But anybody out there who would like for me to do a cooking distance thing, I would love to hear from it. We could have a lot of fun talking or doing a podcast on your favorite foods.
Well, hey, we're on camera and you got the microphone on, so how can people get in touch with you if they wanted to?
Well, you could email me. Well, actually, so the simple way, my website is www.what'sonthemenu event services, but not the words, the letters. So WOTMES.com. And I'm not joking, Michelangelo Sosowitz made my website, and he did a phenomenal job. I'm very happy about that. So thank you, Michelangelo. Lots of fun foods. As Phil kind of said, my pictures and stuff, I'm quite versed in smoking for ribs, pulled pork, a variety of other stuff. I come from the principle and thought process of keep it simple, stupid. It's kind of like the classicness of a black and white photo. You can't go wrong with it. It really, but once you turn it to color, you're wow. I ventured into making pizzas, and Phil is remarking on the Neptune style pie I made with brined lemons, shrimp, calamari, clams. Usually I would do it with smoked mozzarella. But I just used normal mozzarella. And yeah, it kind of turned out. Oh, and of course, you can't go wrong. Bacon. So, yeah.
Bacon. Yeah. I'm going to have to go jog around the block. I think I put on 5 pounds.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Well, Richard Lawrence Stein, we've come to the end of this episode, but thank you for sharing your experience and your observations. And here's hoping that things turn around for all of us, particularly for you.
Thank you, Phil.
The work we do.
It's a pleasure to talk to you. Always good to see you. And your invite is always open. Next time I get something going, you're more than welcome.
That's great. And folks, we'll see you again next week. Thanks for joining us on West Fair Video Conversations. Have yourself a great day.